We are going to begin our porcelain clay unit. You've spent a little bit of time researching the difference between porcelain versus stoneware clay, and so now you're going to get to experiment with a porcelain clay body. And the first assignment we're going to do is a series of pinch pots. They are going to be nesting pinch pot forms. So you're going to have a series of 5 with a large pinch pot all the way down to a little baby pinch pot form. You are going to need half of your block of clay for your pinch pot series, so you do not need your entire block. A little less than half is ideal, and even then you might have a little bit of waste clay left over, which is fine. You will also need 2 additional Ziploc bags. One Ziploc bag will be to store the 5 little balls of clay that we're going to create from half of our original block. And the other Ziploc bag will be to store the finished pinch pots so that they can stiffen slowly. You're also going to need a little cup of water and a nice clean sponge. So you want to take the time to really thoroughly rinse the stoneware off of your sponge so that it is very clean and pure. As a review, a porcelain clay body is kaolin clay based, so it is very bright white, and we don't want to contaminate that with a darker clay body. You are going to start off with a relatively large block of clay. You're going to cut a little less than half of that block off. We're then going to divide that section into 5 smaller sections that are going to turn into our pinch pots. So I had added a little bit of water to this bag because my clay was a little bit too firm. So I just added a little less than 1/4 of an inch of water to this clay, let it soak overnight, turned it on its side, let it absorb more moisture this morning, and now it is perfectly workable. You remember, you want a nice clean wire tool. Everything that touches this porcelain should be devoid of stoneware. I have my 2 Ziploc bags ready to go. I'm going to open up this bag and I'm going to cut less than 1/2 of this block off. I'm going to immediately bag the rest. Get the air out of the bag and seal it up. Porcelain dries out quickly, so you do not want to leave it sitting out in the air. I'm now going to slice this in half. I'm going to use, I think, the larger side for the 2 larger balls of clay. So I'm going to draw my wire in half again, and then this will be cut, not divided completely in half, but a little less than half. So this is the largest ball. This is the next size down. This will be the smallest ball. Actually, no, I'm going to make this the smallest ball. And then that's going to fit right in between. So you can see that I have 5 chunks of clay that vary in size. However, after I get these balled up, I'm going to need to see that they are in fact gradually going from large to small. It appears to me like these 2 blocks, possibly these 3 when they're balled up, might be a little too similar in size, so I may have to make adjustments as I go. So I have balled up my clay, and I'm going to take these out of the bag so that you can see how their size ranges, and we can look to see if we need to make any changes in size as we go. Remember, I'm doing a series of 5 nesting pinch forms. Oh, that ball of clay is very similar in size. These 3, just as I suspected, are quite similar in size. So I'm looking good at this end, but on this end, I'm getting a little bit close in size. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take some off of this one, and I'm going to make an even smaller ball in my range of pinch forms. So this will now be my smallest. So I'm starting to get some really nice size change here. I'm gonna add a little bit more to this ball. I'm gonna slam that clay together so that no air gets in between. Now I have beautiful size variation. This is extra clay. I'm gonna put back in my extra clay bag. You do not want to waste any of this. I recommend periodically spraying a little bit of moisture into that bag. If you don't have a spray bottle, put a few drips of water in there just to keep that clay nice and soft. So now I have my 5 balls of clay that I'll be ready to pinch. You can't pinch them all at the same time, so that means they need to be placed in that second Ziploc bag that you have. I'm gonna spray a little water in there. And then if I'm not working on pinching right away, seal that bag up. If you are pinching, then you can go ahead and remove 1 ball. I think I'm gonna start with the largest and begin pinching. So I'm going to hold this ball of clay in the palm of my hand, press my thumb down through, and pinch and rotate. One thing you'll notice about porcelain clay is how elastic the clay is. In other words, its ability to stretch. Porcelain clay can be pushed quite thin. You should at least figure on that porcelain being at least half the thickness of what you would work with in a stoneware clay. I'm going to create a series of nesting bowls that are relatively shallow. I really like the finger marks on the porcelain as it begins to go thinner. So I'm really going to emphasize pressing, with a lot of pressure to thin out those walls. Take your time to feel where the wall's a little bit thicker and get that thinned out. Because if you have a more even wall thickness, you're less likely to get significant cracking. Notice I'm really not using any water here right now. I'm just stretching that clay. Once you've started pinching a porcelain form, I strongly recommend committing to that and making sure that you completely pinch and finish the form, because it dries out quite easily. So now you can see how thin I push these walls. I could actually take porcelain thinner than that if you would like, but I'm going to leave mine slightly thick because I'm going to do some refining of those edges to have a nice, soft, fluid edge. Notice that I leave the shape very natural. I'm not trying to cut off and have a straight angular edge. Leave it organic. It is a handmade form. So why fight the natural shape that is occurring? So now to create a base, I'm going to gently tap it on the table. So I now have a very shallow bowl form with a very nice sense of visual lift. Now let's talk about how to refine the edge of your work. Remember, you want a nice clean sponge and a little cup of fresh water, and you're going to take that sponge, wring it out well, because porcelain does not like too much moisture. You're going to really take your time and glide that sponge along the rim and refine any cracking that you have going on. You can also refine the interior and exterior of the form in that very same way. Refinement is important with porcelain. If you really want the clay to look very smooth, you have to take the time to refine. So I'm going to go back and forth with my sponge for quite a while to really get a nice refined shape. Whenever you are not working on your pinch forms, you do want to make sure that they are bagged. If you look in the background of my demo space, you'll see that I have 4 pinch forms complete that are bagged so that they can dry slowly. They are already refined on the rim and they are already signature stamped on the bottom. So now they are just slowly drying. Tomorrow morning, I will slightly open the edge of that Ziploc bag to slowly control their drying throughout the day. So I have both the interior and the edge smooth and refined. I really like those natural finger marks. I think the glaze will really complement that. I'm now checking for cracking on the exterior and getting some smooth surface work on the exterior as well. I can already tell I'm gonna need to retap this base. In other words, I want a flat spot. Otherwise, my bowl will constantly roll around. That will not make it too functional. You can see where a little bit of the porcelain overlapped in the pinch process right over there. So I'm going to smooth and refine that area. Now I'm going to tap out my base. I have my little signature stamp ready to roll, so I'm going to give the base a little stamp. And then don't forget, once you are done, you want to make sure that you're sealing that in a Ziploc bag for slow drying. And then you can gradually open up that bag with a little vent and slowly dry out your forms. In the end, you will have a series of 5 nesting forms going from large down to small. Do not nest them during drying. If you nest them, place one inside the other while they dry. If their shrinkage rate is slightly off due to their moisture level being slightly off, they could shrink into one another and be inseparable. So I'm going to let these stiffen up substantially. Then I'll do a little test stack, see if they look like they're gonna stack nicely, and if all is well, I'm going to unstack them and let them dry, and then they'll be ready to fire.